Alright guys, I'm going to attempt to go over some basics about a simple train network in Satisfactory. This is update 8. I am using some utility to be able to move around easily and showcase what I've built here. So this is just a simple train network using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trains. So we have one over here and we have 5 over there, and then we have some pickups and drop-off stations. And this is kind of a complex network. It's not too crazy, fairly simple. It uses no pass signals whatsoever. It's only using block signals. So to start out with, basic trains all started here. And I set up basically A to E, right? And then they only go one way. All the trains go in a loop in one way, right? And it seems, you might think that that's a little inefficient than, say, having a two-way system where they go up and come back down. But this system seems to work fairly well. It keeps everything from intersecting and crashing so that you don't have lots of train wrecks to deal with. So a very basic system is things should always go in one direction. And at every point that you would like, now this can be set up any way you really want. Distance between stations and stuff, your maximum distance on a rail is 12 foundations. It's like 12 and a half total, but I always kind of even it off at 12. But so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we select all these and lose the rail. So that's 12. 12 foundations from tip to tip on this piece of rail. Alright, and so your station takes up 4 foundations if it's centered between 2 here. It can take up 5 technically, and when you stack them, you'll get some offset. Alright, they don't stack exactly like that. Like, you don't get clipping at the edges. They stack from the edge. So when you're stacking them, you're going to notice that whereas this one is centered on the seam between the foundations, the next one over is going to be slightly off center. And the next one over is going to be center of the foundation, not the seam, right? And then the next one over is going to come back to that kind of beside the center. It's hard to see here, but if I remove this foundation and this foundation, you can see that the separation is off to one side of the rail. It's right up under the edge of the rail. And then the fifth one, right, the fifth station will get back on to the center seam. So there is that little bit of adjustment you'll have to deal with when running rails. So that if you want smooth curves, what I've done down here, let me fly down and see. So down here, smooth curves are typically a 4x4, 5x5, and you can get bigger, right? The more you go this way, the more you have to go that way. So now 3x3 doesn't work. It won't connect. It's too sharp of a turn. The 3 is too sharp. So it has to be a 4x4 or bigger. So what I mean by that is 4 foundations this way, and then counting the corner, 4 foundations that way. So here's a common intersection I use on a 2-rail system. This is a little bit more complicated. We'll get into that, once you understand these basics. So what I have here is also, this is a split station stop. So every section of this, if I grab this block signal, you can see that every section of this is multicolored. Now, if I want, what I should have is here, so that separates this little intersection from this whole block. And then this, I don't think I need that there. Yeah. This way, nothing will enter this block as long as something is between here and there, right? Now I could have it to where it's like this. So what that now does is if anything is in this curve along this rail, nothing will come off of it from this block, and nothing will come off of it from this orange block. If anything is on this little orange piece of rail, it'll stop right here on the yellow rail. These block signals handle everything in this network. So each one of these is blocked. You got a block here, and once it's in the station, it allows things to pass here. Right now, if it's got train cars, right, you'll want to put this at the end of your freights. It's got freight cars, right? So you'll want to put things at the end of the freight like this, so that everything in the freight station counts as one block. And then I didn't do this here on purpose so that I could show you. So you've got a block that basically takes that from the back of the station all the way to the next block signal. Alright? So if I come in here and I put a block signal on this side of the rail facing that way, now this is a different section. It changed color. So now, as long as the train's in the station, the train will stop on this block, and once it's fully into this block will open up and allow this train in. Okay? So a block goes at each little section you want to separate. And this is entirely up to you. I don't have to have this extra one here. You can stack them or not. But what I do is that because this is connected to this by this little side entryway here, I will separate this so that once a train passes by this curve and gets into that block, these guys can pass over there. Because the way the system works, all of this is considered one block. Yeah. Right. So as long as there's a train coming from this direction in this block, this train will stop here. Or as long as this train is moving through here or there, these trains will stop right there on the purple. And you can do that for as many blocks as you like. They will only attach where the rails separate. So here, where the rail separates from here, you can put a block signal there. I can also go back and I can add one in on this side. Now, if you want to do a two-way rail, you can do them on both sides. I don't do two-way rails because it gets really complicated. I like a basic block system. A basic block system is very simple, it's easy to maintain, and you can usually find the problems where they're happening very easily by just holding a block signal in your builder and flying around and looking at your stuff, and you'll see where your network is congesting. So what I've also done here is this is a separate loop, but I've included it on the network by taking one of the trains over here and scheduling it to come over there, and taking the train from over here and scheduling it to make a stop over there, so that all the trains are using the whole network. So this is technically a separate loop. It has an entry onto the main system and an exit from the main system. But this little block here can be operating entirely on its own and does nothing but runs up to, say, an ore spot, brings the ore down to a processing station. Boom, de boom, de boom. And then you can have another guy who comes way over here and picks up from that processing station and takes it back onto the main system. Alright? So you go back over here and you have several types of intersections I've included. So we have the merge. This is a constant merge, just like the split for the stations, right? So you need a block signal at each entryway and exit from a block. So if you want them to exit this block right here, you need to put a block signal there, right, so that they exit these blocks and allow the next train to pass on through to the next rail system. Okay? This is a split and a merge, so that they can choose a path to come through here. And what you do is if you route them to pick up station 1, it doesn't matter if there's 3 other paths to get to pick up station 1, they'll usually pick the shortest path. So they could do, there's really only 2 ways to get here, and that's through station C and D. right? So you can take station C and you can go back around to the drop off, or you take station C and go through pickup 1, right? And I kind of did this just to kind of complicate it a little bit, just to kind of show you how you can. So as long as there's a train in this curve or this section of curve here, I don't know why that's discolored. That could be a rendering thing. I don't know. Um, they will not. They will stop at this white system. So this white, anything in that curve, anything on this piece of rail, it'll stop in the pink, right? And this curve is just pretty much the same way. However, I've created a crossover. That's what I call this. It's not really a technical term. So this whole section between these two signals and these two signals is all one rail. If something's on this rail, this train will not cross over to this track. If something's crossing this rail, this train will stop before it enters this block, just to make sure he's not crossing over. Right? So you can kind of separate these complexly like this. So as long as something's on the red, right, it doesn't matter. At this point, now you've just created two systems, and this will only activate if this train has made it completely through there. And so that kind of does the same thing. It didn't change much about it. As long as there's a train in the orange, one won't cross into the red here. If he's on the red coming this way, he'll stop here. So this kind of helps the system a little. And then that way, trains can pass this way and this way without interfering with each other. You see that? But if I remove this one block signal in the middle, right, and go back to look at it now, if a train is on that rail or this rail, it stops the other train on either one. So it's best to put a little block in your crossover. So you create two blocks out of your crossover that are separate. That one train can go to the right here and another train can go to the left here at the exact same time with no issues. The only time there would be an issue is if the crossover train was taking this right, he would stop if there was a train in the orange. Alright, this is a side loop with a T intersection. Now, if you're doing a two rail system, it gets a little bit more complex here. But if you're doing a single rail system where everything just kind of loops and does its work and goes back to its own station, it takes a little more time between stops. Not much, you know. And this, you can run multiple trains without them ever intersecting or colliding or slowing each other down. As long as your pickups and drop-offs are efficient. That's a caveat to this whole thing. But this little side loop is just a single station that does something, and you can have a train that comes in here and grabs whatever, takes it to the drop off, and then comes back. So I can add a whole new train to the system just by creating this little separation here, right? Finding where I want my main rails. So I would just come out here, and I could do one off of here. So we're just going to kind of walk out about 3 or 4 foundations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just there. I like to separate mine by a foundation between them. Some people, they will run them, the rails side by side, like this. But it gets a little tight, and you can have some collisions when you do this if you're not careful with your turns. Some people run it like this. I prefer to run it like this. It's infinite resources. There's no reason not to go ahead and build it with some space and room to make changes, you know. So, I can't really go from here to there. So we need to move this over. So just a nice smooth turn from there. That's to exit into this system. So we're going to put us a block signal there. And then come over one foundation and go here and here. Now we need to determine how far this is going to go. Looks like it's going to hit about right here. So we need to take this section out. Bring this out. Find our foundation. It's this one. Find where it looks the straightest to you. I like it right on the line where it looks like it's 90 degrees to the foundation. And then I can just finish this. And you need at least a 2 foundation gap, usually. to finish this. You can't do a 1.5 and then come back from there to there. So now this is a loop, and by taking and putting a block signal here and a block signal there, we can make our own little side loop here. Is that right? I don't think that's right. I think that's right. And so there's our little loop. Is that not connecting? So entry. Interesting. We're getting. Did that not connect properly or something? There. See, sometimes you'll get a little bit of. I've seen a few of these bugs. So we got entry into that pink block, exit from the pink block, entry into the pink block, exit from the pink block. However, this block should not be that same color pink. That's what it was. Let's try that. There we go. It's a different color now. There was something where I had connected the full length instead of from the short rail to here. Alright, so this, as long as anything's on this loop, nothing will enter this loop. Alright, I could have done that here as well, but as long as something's on the white, nothing will enter the white. But as I did here, you can also break it down into like a couple of sections. So you could say here and here. Now, anything on this section, they'll stop here, right? You can even take these off, and there we go. Now, as you can see here, as long as something's on the pink, nothing will go through the pink, right? As long as something's on the white, nothing will enter the white. So that's why I typically try to separate them early. And if it's just a small loop like this, say I'm going to have a little bitty station, that's all it's doing is dropping off fuel, or it's dropping off coal. So it doesn't really need a big thing. It just needs to have like a train station. Yeah, this is all kind of really tight. It's almost too tight. So I'm just going to kind of cheese it with a little bit of an angle there rather than... Alright, so what I would do here, you see, you can get, as long as you got that 2 foundations there, you can kind of get this in there. 1.5 doesn't work. You can kind of see how it stays red until it's long enough. Alright, and then I would take and typically what I would do is block this at the front and the back of the station, so that as long as there's a train with 2 cars in the station, because if it's longer than that, it's going to stick out into the next block, right? So you need to make sure that your trains are kind of right sized for what their work is, what their job is going to be. So And so this is just another side loop, and it connects back into the main network. And as long as you take a train and say, this train station here, we're going to add a couple of freight cars to it. Two. And Mexico City is where we pick up our coal, and Amsterdam is where we're going to drop it off, right? So we know the names of our stations. You can change those as much as you like. You can also change the name of your train. So we grab our electric locomotive and we drop it in here. And then we grab 2 freight cars. Let's get where we can actually boom, boom, and they'll automatically connect. And all this guy's going to do, now, here's the problem with this particular loop. I have no way of a train being back from here to here without going back up onto the main system, looping all the way around and coming back. To fix that, I can just take and go from here to here. And this is where I would go ahead and add an extra block signal here and here. That way, if something is crossing here, nothing will enter the rail from the main system. Now, this guy doesn't have to make the full loop-de-loop. So, get in your train, and you open your train menu with Q, you edit your timetable, and all your trains that are connected on the system will show up. Right? Alright, so this train is doing nothing but going to Amsterdam to drop off, and coming back to Mexico City to pick up. So it's the next thing. Now we turn on self-driving, and it should drive straight over here, pick up stuff, and come right back by hitting this little B loop. It'll never get on the main network, but it's connected to the main network. So if you needed to send a train from the main network over here to pick something up, then it could take it back to the main system. So we're going to dock, we're going to drop off our coal, and then we're going to go back to Mexico City to pick up more coal. And you'll see the block signals changing as I enter and leave blocks. Tick. So if a train is entering the network here and it's in that curve, I will stop back there and wait before I come around. So if I had multiple coal set up here, I could have one train only picking up the first 2 freight cars, and then I could have another train picking up 5 freight cars of coal here at the same place. As long as you can meet the supply, the demand with your supply. So that's all he'll do. He'll just do that loop to loop. And what is this? This is a freight platform, but I got it backwards. So while he's gone, he won't be able to reach this station. I'm going to turn that around and fix it. And then I will redo this sometimes just to make sure everything connects properly. And what I'll do here is I'll create a block within the actual station so that as long as something's in the station, nothing else will come into the station. Now if I want to, I can go just like this and go boom, 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 and boom. Now I can send another train from the main network that needs 5 carts of coal to also pick up coal here at this same area. And it doesn't matter that he only has 2 trains. He'll come in, he'll pick up his 2 loads, and he'll take them over here. And you can even have a train that said has 2 fluid cars here, and then 3 freight cars, and it picks up, say, oil over yonder, and takes that oil all the way back around with it to pick up 3 coal here. So it picks up 2 oil, picks up 3 coal, and then it loops back to whatever processing plant you want it to go to. So logistics is pretty much up to you. Once you get the stations going, how you set up your loading and unloading, you just have to make sure that you go in and set each one to whatever their job is. So all these are loading. You could even set these to empty platforms here. But since we're using 2 trains on it, we wanted to go get 2 products and one just to keep this little coal running right here. You know, so we would just leave these 2 for working with that, and then your secondary train would have like a couple of empty cars or a couple of fluid cars or a couple of freight cars just picking up quartz or iron or copper or something else, and it just gets coal in the back 3 cars, and you could take all that to one location. And then these, having a main train station, this is what this is kind of representing, is if I were to put these stations out here and put freight all along behind it, I could then, belt out whatever I wanted straight into one location. So I could have all these set up as a main drop-off point where they bring everything that they're picking up to here on the home network, all right? And they would still, you can see I've had no collisions in the time I've been doing this. And it's pretty, we got, including that one, we have 7 trains running. We have 5 stations here that each have a train, and we have 1 station over there that has a train, and then we have a stop station, and then 3 pickup stations, a drop-off station, and then another pickup station and drop-off station, completely separate network. Now, next video I'll probably talk about dual systems, which is what we've done down here, which is where you have 2 rails, one running in one direction and one running in the other direction, right? So that you can have intersections like this where trains can choose which direction they need to go. And you can also have crossovers, but you need to path these, you need to block these out so that this crossover here is seen as one network. So if something's coming this way on that rail, nothing will cross over at the same time. So anytime rails touch, you need to be thinking about signals. So if they cross over like this is all one big block. If something's in this block, nothing will enter the block. These extra, I don't need these extras here. They were just kind of terminating the system because these don't light up properly if they don't have a terminal signal, an end signal, a final signal. So then you need to define the next block before this block will signal properly. That's a key thing when using block signals. So when you place one at each section, it's going to signal the next one that, hey, I'm a new block, and it's going to light up properly, either green or red, based upon whether you can or cannot enter it. If you get a blinking like this, then there's some break or disconnect between this one and the next signal, meaning either the rails are not connected properly or you don't have the rails built beyond that point, and so at this point it'll break the system and they'll stop right here and they won't go any further. All right. So, little basics on turns. I like the 3 and 4. These are the 2 that tend to be the most useful for me. You can get bigger. I have seen 5, 6, 7, 8s in big turns. Oh, and one other thing. Before we go any further, I want to talk about these. This is a corkscrew or spiral, or it's a way to elevate your train slowly without going too steep, because trains won't go super high really fast. So if you go too high, too fast, too steep, the train won't climb it. Right? So I tend to do these spirals, and you can do them multiple different ways. I'm doing one foundation between each level. Right, so you'll see that I've raised them 1 each time as I went around, and then I typically will put a little 1 meter ramp under it to kind of make it look good. and your rails run from the center of that ramp, so halfway on that ramp, to halfway to the next ramp. Okay. Um, your incline to this is not that important as long as it can get up it. This is about the highest I would go. I would not do any more than a 4 meter foundation separation. Then it gets a little bit more difficult to climb. They'll climb it, they just get slower, and that messes with your scheduling or timetables. So you want to think about that. It's typically I just take a foundation. It doesn't matter what kind. You can even go. I like to use these, right? To get it on vertical, and we'll go up, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. You can only make certain kinds of turns, So here we would, again, halfway through this one, bring it out till it looks smooth to you, not clipping or whatever. And then you make the next turn, and it's going to end up perfectly 90 degrees to the foundation, right dead center. Right? And then we would continue this, and you don't have to build this whole spiral frame or any of that. You can just get your foundations out there and then go. 1, 2, and you just got to make sure you come out 3 from your center foundation. That's the main caveat to this. And don't go too high, don't go too steep. Right? And then there you go. You make a nice little smooth spiral that it can climb. You can make a double. I call that the double helix. This is a single. Because you could fit a second rail underneath this spiraling in there as well. Right? So you could have 2 going up that at the same time if you did it properly. It'd take a little finagling, but you can work it out. Right? As long as your next foundation here is like this. No, I don't want you under there. There. That's why I don't like using the frames too much. And then this one would be here. And then the final one here. Let's get our little concrete. Let's put one there. One here. One here. So we take and we get us halfway through this foundation. We bring it out till it's smooth. And then we spiral up underneath to that one. And then to this one. And you just continue that same process. You skip a foundation. Come out your 3. Put your ramp on. Skip a foundation. And this will technically work. You won't have any collisions. It may not look exactly, smooth like you would like. You can work with this and come up with your own designs. Not the way we want that to go. Yeah. And then from here to there. And so you can have 2 trains spiraling in the same tower, go in different directions to do different things. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll go ahead and come out like this. This is my flat level, get it centered here, remove this, bring it over to center there, and this will work. And that makes it does get a little bit of clipping right on the edge here. You can see that clipping through it right there just a little bit, but it doesn't look bad, and it smooths it off flat with the next level. And so you can have a separate train coming off over here and going doing its own thing, and it's in the same corkscrew. So it's a very simple process. It just takes a little bit of thinking and a little time to set up, and the foundation, the ramp foundation has definitely helped to build your smooth curve. And remember to split it half and half. So that's basics. That's a basic simple network system, and how to set up multiple trains on one simple network, and then add loops to it and have them, route to different stations and drop things off. Editing timetables is something you'll get more familiar with as you get in your train and you edit your timetable. You can just click the plus sign, add them to there. So we want this guy to go to Mexico City and then Amsterdam. But let's see, let's go here, let's go here. So save changes. So his next station is now Mexico City. He's going to find a route on the system. So what he's going to do is probably hit the far loop and go all the way back around so that he can run over here and hit Mexico City. And that's it. You just add him. Once you get them on the network, you go and edit your timetable, fit them where you want to go between your stops, and save the changes, and they'll continue on their loop. That should help with some basics. If you got any more questions, we'll get more into it later. There we go. Alright guys, we'll see you on the next one.